Yeah.
The Dolphins burned the bridge to the ground. And he seemed legitimately troubled by that. You know, in interviews, like, I'll do what's best for the team, but they were really playing well behind me. I mean, he was candid.
He seemed kind of broken by all of it.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. But, hey, man, I haven't looked at Spot Track to see what his career earnings are, but I'd say he's done pretty well. Because he got some pretty good money these last 7 or 8 years.
He played 166 games in the NFL. He started 147. He's 39 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be 40 in November. I mean, it makes sense. Let's see what Spot Track says about Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Does he score? Didn't he score a 50 on the Wonderlic? Or like a 48 on the Wonderlic?
He went to Harvard, and for people who don't remember, he was this fresh-faced little guy who spent like 3 years with the Rams and actually got stuck in the game and played some and threw for – like he has no conscience. It's like, oh, no, I'll throw it 40 times. I don't care. I'll just throw it 40 times. I know the offense.
Sure.
Like you said, high IQ. Just put me out. So he would just go out there and throw it all around the yard, and he kind of became this little folk hero, and then his time kind of dwindled with the Rams, and you think, well, that's just a lot. And he had clean cut, clean shaven. He looked like he was about 15. And then he just keeps resurfacing. It's like I saw an interview once with Weird Al Yankovic, and he said, every time I put out a record, people consider it a comeback, even though I never go away in between. It's just like people forget about me. And then I make a record, and it's like, what a comeback. And he's like, I never went away. I'm not coming back from anything. I was here the whole time. You just didn't notice. Fitzpatrick just kept coming back.
Yes.
And even in places where he didn't go necessarily to play or be the starter, or like you said, he'd be a bridge, that dude was always going to get his, at least if it was in like a 4 or 5 game stretch.
Oh, yeah. There was never a more streaky quarterback than him, and he would hurt you. No question. By the way, scored a 48 on the Wonderlic. Now, you think about that. That's, top scores 50. And what is it, 50 questions in 12 minutes?
Yeah, I had to take it. I was in the final 50 for The Apprentice once, and I had to take it. I never knew what I made on it.
You were in the final 50 for The Apprentice?
Yeah, I met Trump and Mark Burnett.
I didn't.
I guess I just said that. Yes, wow. I was in the 1 year I was.
How have you and I worked together for 8 years and I didn't know? Wow. Okay. Well, that's something I've learned today, years old.
His career earnings, $82 million. I would not have made that if I had gone on to be on The Apprentice.
I thought it would be 100, but
I thought it would too.
Yeah.
The NFL's a different animal, though, because he didn't really make much in his rookie contract because he was a late round pick, I would assume. I don't remember where they took him. I'm sure it's probably on this page somewhere. He was round 7. Played 17 years. He was a 7th round pick quarterback. Now think about all the dudes that the Titans have picked up later, and Cole McDonald, he didn't make it to training camp.
Cole McDonald didn't even have a farm.
That dude, I think they brought him to Nashville and watched him throw in person and was like, I'm sorry, man. Aloha. We can't fix that. And he was a fun college quarterback.
Sure.
But to think about that, even though he was a long backup, to think you drafted a guy in the 7th round and he played 17 years and made $82 million.
That's the American dream you just described right there.
Ryan Fitzpatrick out of Harvard.
Yeah.
And think about all the dudes he went to Harvard with who invented something that didn't make $82 million.
Correct.
And he made
That's right. That's 100% correct. I guarantee you those are things that have happened to him.
Rhett Bryan hanging out for Blaine today. So the whole second hour of the program we've got open. Blake Topmeyer is going to join us for the second segment of the first hour. And we got an interesting question we want to float out to all you Tennesseans. We got a fun question that we'll float out in the second hour that I just want to see what some of your responses are. We got into this rabbit hole of who's from where in Tennessee this morning. So we'll talk sports, don't worry. But we do have a side topic that we'll keep running in the second hour today that I think some of you would have some fun with because it'll give you a chance to brag on your hometown a little bit. How about that?
And there are some folks who are either born or natives of or lived in Tennessee, but born in Tennessee, that it would blow your mind. And that's what got all this started, and I'll tease it that way because there's one that blew my mind last night looking at famous folks from Tennessee. And it could be sports, it could be movies, television, acting, whatever. But I was last night years old when I found out this person was born in East Tennessee.
Okay. Well, just hold on to your hats.
Yep.
We'll get to that. You can, obviously, the Zone TV chat's always open. Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline, 615-737-1045. You were out yesterday, just like Blaine and me. You got to see the rookies and the vets on field together again this week. Some of my things that I wrote down, Robert Woods and Caleb Farley both looked strong again. I have been nothing short of amazed. And the way they practice, we get a better look at the receivers because they work out, they do their individual stuff right in front of the reporters.
Right. The
DBs go like a whole field away, and we don't have great access to always see what they're doing. Robert Woods is doing everything. He's got a brace on his knee. That dude is doing everything.
And by all intent and purposes, so is Caleb Farley.
We do see their 7-on-7, and when they do team periods, and we can't, as we were saying earlier, we have to speak in a lot of generalities, but we can say this, both of those guys are taking part in it a lot.
They are. And this is June the 2nd. So, yeah. And listen, let's say this, because you and I started this conversation off air, and I'll bring it on air right here on Blaine and Mickey. And I think this Titans defense, I told Shane Bowen the same thing yesterday when they were at the presser. I said, listen, I think you are the luckiest dude in this building because of the talent that is coming back on your side of the ball. 10 of 11 starters. And I think you're getting Big Jeff in his prime. Denico Autry proved to be a fantastic move by John Robinson to bring over in free agency. You've got Zach Cunningham in this thing. David Long gets better and better all the time. You're set at safety. Your corners are young. And I said to you, if Caleb Farley is a significant contributor to this defense, it's got a chance to be special. I really believe that. And what that is, the definition of special, I don't know. I made a mention on your show before that I think this defense has a chance to break the franchise sack record that Blaine was a part of in 2000 when they had 55. They had 43 last year. And they were really starting to feel their oats and get into a groove that last
Imagine a full year of Bud Dupree, more than a year out of knee surgery. Yep.
That's what I'm talking about. And more importantly, and this, I also told Shane Bowen the same thing. They have the personnel to rush for and cover the rest. And that is the formula on how you take down what is going to be a difficult schedule when you've got AFC West quarterbacks led by Patrick Mahomes. You've got to play Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. That's how you beat them. That's the formula, especially Patrick Mahomes.
When we watched Tom Brady and the Bucks beat they beat the Chiefs, right?
When they won the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hold on a second. I remember watching that game, and all week leading up to it, Blaine kept saying, the Bucs are going to win because they can rush 4 people and cover everybody else with the other 7.
Mm-hmm.
And was dead serious. So the game ended. We came in, Monday, and he said, the Bucs can rush 4 people. They can completely bamboozle what you're trying to do with 4 people.
Between Ndamukong Suh and JPP and all those cats. And Shaq Barrett, yeah.
And then suddenly there's not holes out there in the coverage for Kelsey, and there's not, that big opportunity for Tyreek Hill to get behind you just because the ability you have to cover everybody else with those other 7 people.
That's it.
You think about what they did against the Rams last year, the Titans. Think about what they did against the Chiefs.
They held Patrick Mahomes to his first career NFL game without a passing touchdown.
So 27-3.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did not have a touchdown in that game. And he had Tyreek Hill. And he had Sammy Watkins. And he had he had Travis Kelce. And that's why I say if Caleb Farley, because he's the unicorn when it comes to these traits that you're looking for in the athleticism. He's a different dude. And you look at how he's worked on his body. What was it they said last week? It doesn't look like he's jersey sitting on a clothes hanger or a coat hanger. And I think he's the X factor in this. I think if he is a considerable contributor in this thing in rotation snaps and effort and plays and those things, I think he makes Christian Fulton better. I just think that back end of that back third of that Titans defense will shore up the rest. I believe that. Because Jeff is the best big man defensive lineman, not named Aaron Donald right now.
And he's even bigger than
he makes Aaron Donald look tiny.
He is a bigger dude than Aaron Donald. So he's got this deal where he is, as you said, the best big man, and he could get better. Like there are things that Big Jeff would probably tell you, I can get way better at this.
It's 100% right. And listen, for everything that happened with A.J. Brown and all that, look, and I know that we just passed the June 1st date yesterday, and there's some money freed up. But, I mean, there's a bigger picture to this. They're going to have to pay Jeffrey Simmons. And guess what? It's going to be a lot of money, and it's going to be worth every penny because that dude, you know, talk about the unicorn, a dude as big as he is. He's big everywhere. His pinkies are big, you know? He had 8.5 sacks last year. Why? Because they started putting the pieces around him for him to be able to flourish and disrupt and dump a guard back into the quarterback's lap or whatever.
Which he did.
He had 8.5 sacks, man. That's Aaron Donald numbers.
It's like when you got a dog that'll go out and like bring you a mole or something, you know, bring you a carcass that it's found
and it's proud to show you.
Like Big Jeff will take a guard to his own quarterback. Like,
Yes.
Here, I brought you your guard.
Yeah. Hey, you lost this guy. Here he is.
I'm gonna use him to knock you over.
Right.
To show you, yeah. We had Joel Corey on yesterday, former sports agent, who's now one of these, like, let me talk about
Always a great guest.
And I said, do the Titans need to go ahead and pay Big Jeff before the Aaron Donald deal? Do they need to just try to get it done? Because what if Aaron Donald gets 30? You can't give Big Jeff 30, and he's probably going to get 30. Like Corey, I think essentially said he wants more than that, like quarterback type money.
Yep.
And he said quarterback money's not 30 anymore. Quarterback money is 40.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you know, rising tide lifts all boats. So maybe you could get your tide before that other boat gets risen in the tide.
And didn't Aaron Donald just change agencies? Isn't he with?
No, we asked him. This is just for his marketing.
Okay.
It's not for his football.
Contractual
No.
things.
And Joel Corey said, let me clarify that. This is only for marketing. He did not switch his football agency.
Yeah, who was it he went to for the marketing, though? I just saw it the other day.
It's Kanye, right?
Yes, that's right. The Donde deal.
Yep.
Right.
Lonzo says, what up, guys? Well, this defense, how does Ryan Tannehill play all year? And then what happens in the playoffs for him is the $1 million question. How much did they use Derrick Henry is another $1 million question because they were on pace for like over 450 carries, I think, last year with him. And then how good is this defense?
And that's why I say that about the defense, Mickey, is this defense, if it is what I do believe it to be, is going to keep the Titans in a lot of games. And I'm not sliding the offense at all. I'm just saying if you've got that, you've got something.
We got something coming up next. It's Blake Topmeyer. He's at the SEC spring meetings. What's going on with the schedule? What's going on with the SEC only playoff? Heck, they're talking about some basketball stuff. We'll get to all that next with Blake right here on Blaine and Mickey with special guest Rhett Bryan. So FanDuel Sportsbook, you know it, they're an official betting partner of the 75th NBA Finals. And to celebrate 75 years of the NBA, we're going to give all customers a $75 referral bonus. Yep, that's right. You'll give and get $75 in site credit when you invite friends to join America's #1 sportsbook. Here's how it works. You just invite your friends from the app. Then you make sure they sign up with your referral link. How about that? And as soon as your friend makes any bet of at least $10, you'll get a bonus. The offer ends June 2nd, which, I mean, we're there when game 1 of the NBA Finals tips off. Don't miss your chance to bet the finals with a bonus. If you're new to FanDuel, you can also sign up with the promo code Mickey. That's Mickey to get free bets after your first bet. Again, promo code Mickey. So just head over to the FanDuel Sportsbook app, invite your friends today, get your $75 sportsbook credit. Now, you do have to be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. Referred players must wager $10 within 28 days after signing up. Limit 10 referrals. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires after 7 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Blaine and Mickey, 1045 The Zone, having a good time here. Rhett Bryan hanging out with me today, filling in for the hit man. I always have a good time. We talk to Blake Topmeyer, who joins us now, covering the SEC for the USA Today. Blake, how in the world are you doing, man? Are you working on your tan somewhere in Sandestin right now, I hope?
Yeah, funny you should ask, actually. I just left the beach. I'm heading back to my vehicle now and be headed to the meeting soon. So, yeah, that's no joke. I was working on my tan.
Dang it, man. That's the kind of stuff we just say in passing, but we hope you don't rub it in our face like that. But we'll accept it since I brought it up. At B. Topmeyer, you can follow him there for all the latest from the SEC spring meetings and more. So Saban and Jimbo, I mean, the principal's right down the hall. It kind of felt like both of them were going to throw, ice water on this deal. And both of them seemed to really downplay everything when they had the chance to speak again.
They did. And like you said, I think the fact that the principal, Greg Sankey, had a chance to talk to him probably affected that. I think with Nick Saban, he would have reeled it back in anyway. I think, when you go back to his comments, he made them at a booster meeting, at a speaking engagement in Birmingham, Alabama. That's different than saying what he said at a news conference. And I don't think Saban ever would have said it in a formal media setting. And with Jimbo, he fired back, but at this point, what else is he going to say? Like, unless he's going to pull back the curtain on these veiled allegations he made on Nick's program, like, he said what he's going to say. It is what it is. It's good off-season entertainment, and now it's put to bed, and they'll settle it on October 8th.
There's something right as we were picking up the phone to talk to you. Ross Dellinger tweeted this. Ryan Day and Gene Smith went and spoke to 100 members of the Columbus business community to tell them they're going to need $13 million to keep their players together with the NIL money. And I'm sure you'll see it later because literally this just dropped. And Ross kind of quote tweeted it and was talking to some more NIL stuff. From the jump on the Saban thing, what got him in trouble was he used the word bought because, like, Alabama people in my timeline are like, he never called them cheaters. And I said, the word bought implies cheating. It does. Like, bought is a bad word in the college recruiting world. So bought was the thing that got him in trouble. But I agree with you 100%. Rhett Bryan is filling in for Blaine today. And I said, this guy was in a room full of business leaders in the middle of Alabama. My biggest takeaway was he told them, we finished second in recruiting, as if to say, and you guys can fix it.
And what's interesting, you're right. The word bought is the charged word. And Nick came back on Tuesday and said, well, I never said anybody did anything wrong. And I have an issue with that because he did say somebody did something wrong, because whether anyone's actually following NCAA rules or not is debatable. But NCAA rules still say that pay-for-play recruiting inducements are against the rules. That's a violation of NCAA rules. And so if someone bought their entire roster, that would be against the rules. So Nick can say now that he didn't say anybody did anything wrong, but that's not accurate. He was saying that. And I think it's fine. He can say what he wants. And like you said, he's whipping his people into a frenzy down there. He's rallying the base. Jimbo did the same thing. He came back and rallied the base. That's what I don't understand. Some people say, like, "Ooh, well, should Jimbo have said this? Should he have come at the king like this?" Like, I mean, why not? Like, A&M fans right now are eating out of the palm of Jimbo's hand. Aggie boosters right now are clearly eating out of the palm of Jimbo's hand. And the interesting thing is, to this point in Jimbo Fisher's tenure, his record is identical to Kevin Sumlin's record to this point in his tenure. I'm not saying that it really is a criticism. Sumlin actually was better at the beginning of his tenure than at the end. But it just, like, the momentum he has and the support he has from Aggie fans, part of it is kind of wrapped up in this stuff, right? Like, Jimbo's not afraid to back down from anybody, or he's not going to back down from anybody. And so, I don't think there's really any real harm in what either of them said.
Blake Topmeyer never backs down from covering the SEC for USA Today, and he's on right now with us on Blaine and Mickey.
And Blake, there are all kinds of topics that are being discussed or dialogues being opened at these spring meetings. You have covered this quite well, and I'll get to the basketball part here in a little bit, but I wanted to ask you about some of the other things, like an SEC playoff and some of the things that have been discussed. What are some of the things that have been highlights of these spring meetings?
Well, obviously the scheduling. There's so much interest in what the SEC is going to do with its future schedule after Texas and Oklahoma join the conference. And And it seems like divisions are all but dead, or at least when Oklahoma and Texas join. There's been no vote yet, but all signs point toward it's going to be a 16-team league with no divisions. And the debate is, what type of scheduling model do you then use? The two leading contenders are either A, one permanent rival and 7 rotating SEC opponents, or B, 3 permanent rivals for each team and 6 rotating SEC opponents. So if you're doing the math there, option A would have you playing 8 SEC games. Option B would have you playing 9 SEC games, which would be an increase from the current format and would bring the SEC alongside the Big Ten and the Big 12, which have been playing 9 conference games. And so that's probably topic number one. There has been some, there's the general NIL grumbling and whatever. That's a topic, but I almost don't even count that because there's no answers. There's just grumbling at this point. But the other thing would be the playoff. I think, I asked Greg Sankey directly on Tuesday, this report, this dialogue about an SEC only playoff, like, is that real or is that just a bluff? Is that just leverage to give everybody else, reason to give in to what Greg Sankey wants? And Sankey says, of course, it's not a bluff. It's not leverage. It's a blue sky idea that he's filed away and stowed, and he's not ruling out an SEC only playoff. Now, I don't totally agree with that. I think mostly this is probably leverage from Greg Sankey, and he wants the other conference commissioners in the end, whenever this current contract expires, to give him one of the formats that he wants. And if they don't, I think this back pocket idea of an SEC only playoff works great as leverage, because it's like, fine, if you don't give Greg Sankey what he wants when it comes time to decide this, when the current contract ends, he's always got the threat of taking his ball and going home. He can stage his own playoff. And I think it's actually pretty smart of him to put that out there. He can say it's not a threat, but maybe that's not the way it was intended. But I do think it kind of acts as that, and he still swings the biggest sword in the future of the college football playoff, I believe.
I thought the 9 games and 3 permanent opponents, I wondered, it seemed like that was just going to go through. And then now here we are, there were some other schools in the conference. Kentucky's one of the ones that I've seen that said, no, let's stick to 8, and here's why. But it is crazy to think of some of the rivalries yearly that could die if it was 8 and 1 permanent. You're burying a whole lot of tradition in that case.
Completely agree. I'm with you. I do not like that format. First off, I think 9 SEC games is better than 8. You hear athletic directors say all the time, like, how do we compete with 70-inch flat screen TVs and surround sound at home? Well, the first way you can start competing with that is putting good competition on the field. Like, nobody wants to go out to a game against Ball State. They want to go see, good opponents, and a ninth conference game helps address that. But then, more to your point, it preserves some of those second-tier rivalries. I think a great example of that is, in the case of Auburn. Of course, if it's just a 1-7 model, they're going to have to play the Iron Bowl. But if it's a 3-6 model, you get to preserve Auburn, Georgia, which is a really big secondary rivalry.
Yep.
And you can go on down the line. There's several schools that are in that situation. You think about Tennessee, and I know some Tennessee fans would probably not be upset with the Alabama series ending. But I think some of your older fans who value tradition, who remember a time when the Vols actually beat Alabama, they probably would like to keep that rivalry going. Well, if it's a 1-7 model, Alabama's going to be playing the Iron Bowl. You're not going to keep that going on an annual basis. In a 3-6, I think 2 of Tennessee's 3 rivals, one would be Vanderbilt, one would be Alabama.
Yeah.
So I think you get to keep them both going. So I agree with you. I think the 3-6 model is better for scheduling overall, and I think it's better for these secondary rivalries.
Do you think if you're not going to have divisions anyway, could there be some rallying of, okay, we'll play 8, but we got to keep 3? We have to keep more permanent opponents.
Say that again.
If they do decide to stick with 8, could there be a secondary ask or vote of, okay, then we need at least 2 or 3 opponents, even if it's 8, because we cannot just bury. Think about like Texas when they come in. I grew up in Arkansas. Texas and Arkansas were each other's rival in the old Southwest Conference. However, when Texas joins, don't you have to keep the Red River rivalry? Don't you have to keep that together with them in Oklahoma? Doesn't that have to continue? Because that's their game. And then who's A&M's permanent rival? There are so many questions. It just seems like you need at least 2, if not 3, no matter how many games you play.
But that's the problem with the 1-7. I don't think you can make those exceptions for certain schools because it throws off the whole schedule. The beauty of the 1-7 is, you do the math here. You got 16 teams in the conference. That means there are 15 teams you could play, right?
Yeah.
And so one of them is your permanent rival, and that leaves 14 teams.
Yeah.
And so everybody would have 7 teams that they play in year 1, and then the other 7 teams they play in year 2. So if you start making like special exceptions, it throws the whole thing off. And so that's why in that 1-7 model, I think you would only see one annual game for each team, and it would be that top rivalry. And I think for Texas, it would be Texas Oklahoma, and so I think you would not have Texas A&M on an annual basis, and LSU maybe is paired with A&M in that scenario. And I'm with you. I don't like that 1-7. I think they need to be playing 9 conference games anyway. But I think the preservation of those those number 2 rivalries, which for a lot of schools, there's not that much difference between rivalry 1 and rivalry 2. They're both a big deal. I think that 3-6 model is much, much better for that. And I don't buy this argument that you couldn't make the playoff. It would be harder to make the playoff. I mean, think about 2020. The SEC staged a 10-game conference schedule. All they played were conference games.
Yeah.
And Alabama, wins the national championship, and Texas A&M was knocking on the door. If Notre Dame or Ohio State loses a game in that season, the SEC gets 2 bids in a year where it played 10 conference games. So I don't buy this argument that, it would make it impossible for SEC teams to make the playoff if they were playing an extra game. No, it wouldn't. They'd still get at least one team in every year.
Sure would. Blake Topmeyer, our guest here on Blaine and Mickey.
Blake, you had a column this morning also discussing some basketball opportunities, and apparently the coaches started a dialogue with SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey about a possibility of moving back the SEC basketball championship a day early and having Selection Sunday off. What's the idea behind all of that that's been brought to light?
Well, I think if you think back to this spring, and the SEC was disappointed in how it was treated on Selection Sunday. I think there was, belief certainly within the camp at the University of Tennessee that the Vols deserved a 2 seed. And then certainly as well, Texas A&M advancing to the tournament championship game and getting left out and settling for an NIT bid. I think throughout the SEC, there was a belief, whether justified or not, that the selection committee did not give it the respect that the league thought it deserved in seeding. And I think that a theory as to why that maybe was the case was, the selection committee tries to do so much work in advance as much as possible. They have a really hard job. They got to release that bracket. What is it, like 30 minutes after the final conference championship game? And so there's a thought that, so much work goes in advance that maybe having your championship game on Selection Sunday puts you at a seeding disadvantage. And so, yes, the conversation has come up in the men's basketball coach meeting this week about moving that championship game to Sunday. But as Greg Sankey said yesterday, it's a fine idea, and maybe that will happen in time, but there's a lot of moving parts to that. I mean, you got to have, your host on board in Nashville. You have to have your TV partners on board with that. And Greg Sankey also said, in terms of attendance for the event, the Sunday scenario works pretty good. Like you're getting an extra weekend day. And he said you can kind of see the crowd grow throughout the week for those conference tournament games. If you move everything up, one day, you're starting play, earlier in the week, and it might hurt your crowds. And so it seems like it's something the SEC is interested in doing long term. We know Nashville is the long term home of that event, and Greg Sankey said they've been great partners throughout all this. But still, there's multiple hoops that the SEC would have to jump through and involve multiple parties in that. And so it doesn't sound like it's anything that's going to be imminent. Based on reading between the lines of what Sankey was saying, doesn't sound like that would be something that would happen this season. But perhaps at some point down the road, that championship game in Nashville could move. Everything could move forward, and that would leave the championship game on Saturday.
Blake Topmeyer hanging out with Rhett Bryan and me. What's the what did you call it? Or it was called a Trojan horse by Nick Saban regarding inter-conference transfers and that window of time that he had tried to place in there?
Yeah, it's a proposal that Alabama has made that, yes, I've called it Trojan horse, because they're presenting it as like, hey, isn't this a great idea? Why wouldn't we do this, right? and so to review the way the rule is now, to transfer from one SEC school to another, if you're an undergraduate football player, let's say you want to transfer from Mississippi State to Alabama, you have to be in the transfer portal by February 1. If you're not in by February 1 and you want to go to Alabama, you would have to sit out a season unless you get a waiver, or you could still transfer outside the conference. What Alabama wants to do, what they've proposed, is moving that deadline back to May 1st. So now if you're, say, a Mississippi State football player and you want to transfer to Alabama, you could enter your name into the portal on April 30th and go to Alabama. Now, pretty much every coach that we've talked to down here, other than the Alabama camp, of course, thinks this is a bad idea. Like, why is it okay for you to practice in the spring for one SEC team and then transfer at the end of spring practice to another SEC team? And I agree with that. Like, I think it's fine to transfer from one conference team to another. I think the SEC was smart to allow that, because if not, all your athletes that are going to transfer, they're going to leave the conference. You're going to lose talent. But I think the February 1st deadline works. Like, if you want to transfer from one SEC school to another, do it at the end of the season, not at the end of spring practice,
Yeah.
And if you're a program like Alabama, you could kind of evaluate spring practice, and then you think, we need some left guard help here. What's Vanderbilt got there at left guard? They got anybody that wants to come transfer after spring practice? I think everybody outside Alabama kind of thinks this is a bad idea, and it's not. That Trojan horse doesn't seem to be getting past the barrier wall there. But the interesting thing is, we hear all these coaches and administrators complaining about the rate of transfers, and so then it's like, well, wait a second here. You want to give athletes 3 more months to transfer from one SEC school to another? Like, I thought we were having this huge problem of transfers. So it is interesting. It's like you don't like the rules until you think you can finagle them to meet your needs, and then suddenly you like the rules again.
Blake Topmeyer. All right, on the way out, we got about a minute left. Inevitably, this question always comes up, especially I think from fans who are fans of Power 5 teams or fans of the group of 5 teams who might be looking in. Eventually, when do the big guys just say, okay, we'll make everybody employees and just break off and do our own thing?
Yeah, I've asked that question this week and haven't really got a straight answer. I thought the best answer was from Scott Strickland, the AD at Florida, who didn't really answer that directly, but he said, like, it is really interesting. Scott Strickland said that the industry has left the compensation and benefits of athletes largely up to third parties and not tried to take care of that themselves. And he didn't say whether that was right or wrong, but just said it was interesting. And I think reading between the lines there, it's like, for all the complaining about NIL money and booster influence and all that, like, let's not forget this is the path that NCAA sports has chosen. They haven't designated athletes as employees. They haven't paid them wages. Yes, there's significant value to a college scholarship. Nobody will deny that. But when it comes to compensation, the schools and the NCAA decided, we're not going to do this. We're going to leave it in the hands of a third party. And so it's like, well, you kind of reap what you sow to a certain extent. And so I still think that is where we're headed. How fast we get there, I think, as we all know in college sports, things move at a glacial speed. Maybe we never get there. I think we do get to a point where the big schools eventually designate certain athletes, particularly in your revenue generating sports, as employees, and they're on employee contracts with wages. But like I said, things in college athletics move so slowly. It'll probably be a long, painstaking process to ever get there.
Blake, fantastic stuff, man. You can go back, finish your tan, catch the afternoon session down there, SEC spring meetings. You need to follow Blake at BTopmeyer or anywhere you want to consume the SEC in the USA Today Network. Thank you, sir, for the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yes, sir. That's some really good stuff.
It is. And, the one thing I hear in all that, I hear two words, and it's because the SEC is consistently the best football conference in North America. And with adding teams, it's growing pains. That's what it is. All of this is growing pains. A lot of it's good problems to have. I mean, some of these other conferences would be like, man, I wish we had that problem.
Well, when you are leading and everybody else is chasing the way that they're chasing, it's an interesting thing to watch, especially when it's a Power Five.
That's right.
And one conference is literally saying, we'll just have our own playoff. And as Blake said, this doesn't just seem like a bluff. It seems like, no, we feel like we could do it. That's a heck of a thing to say in the current landscape, and Greg Sankey said it. All right, we got to take a break, and we come back. Brad is in the Zone TV chat. He threw out a couple of interesting questions, and I'm super curious about this. Like, I didn't go to an SEC school. I just cover the SEC. I like the rivalry sticking together. If you're an SEC fan, are you fine with keeping one permanent opponent and just flushing all the other yearly rivalries down the toilet? 615-737-1045. That would be surprising to me if people were that okay with that. We'll come back. We'll talk about it next. All right. This is go time for all of you out there looking to get your house the way you always dreamed it could be, right? Probably got stuck at home a couple of years with COVID, like a lot of us. You spend a lot of time around your house. You thought, man, my kitchen's straight out of 1974. Or you thought, gosh, all 10 of us or 8 of us or 5 or 4, however many people live in your house are just on top of each other all the time. What if we had a cool outdoor living space? I'd go live out there sometimes, but you don't. Maybe you got like 3 steps to a little patch of dirt or something. You want like your dream, stuff out there. Well, that's where Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert, comes in. Maybe for you, maybe after COVID, it's not fix up the house. It's bills. Maybe it's debt of some kind. Gosh, maybe it's medical debt. Well, home loan expert, they can take that E word out of your house, that equity. Ryan Kelly and his team can take that equity, help you build your dream house, help you pay off those debts, credit card debts, medical debts, whatever it is. As a matter of fact, the average homeowner is currently pulling $54K out in a cash out refi. It's a whole lot of equity in your home, and you can put it to work, and Ryan Kelly can help you. Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. That's the guy, thehomeloanexpert.com, and he is a Tennessee residential mortgage licensee. Blaine and Mickey 104.5 The Zone. Rhett Bryan hanging out for the Hitman today. Brad weighed in a couple times in the Zone TV chat. Don't rival games need to be competitive to be considered a rival? No, Brad, that's not how it works. Because competition wavers over the years. One team might beat one team a while, then the other team. That doesn't matter. History is what builds a rival. And then he said Alabama and Tennessee are not, he said rivals, but I'm assuming he meant rivals. Look, I don't have a dog in either one of those hunts. I didn't go to Tennessee. I'm not from Tennessee or Alabama. I didn't go to Alabama. There are rivals. Now, are they Tennessee's biggest rival anymore? I would say that depends on your age.
That's
I think
right.
when people our age or older would say yes. I asked the question on the Blaine and Mickey Twitter, if you could only play one school for a permanent opponent, who would you want to play? And it's Florida's number one, which I would have guessed Florida because there's enough people in the middle age group
That's right.
that's who they consider their rival. I don't know if people from Florida consider Tennessee their rival, but more of you who answered this poll say Florida. Second is Alabama. Third is Vanderbilt. Fourth is Georgia. And it's like basically 30% for Vandy, 35% for Florida, 32% for Alabama, 3.6% for Georgia.
Yeah.
So, and I understand what Brad is saying. Brad, I'm not poking the bear here. But who wins can ebb and flow, and Alabama has beaten Tennessee regularly for a number of years now. So I could understand anybody, and I thought, okay, I'm going to look him up. He's not from Tennessee or Alabama. Looks like he's from Kentucky. So maybe this is a neutral Kentucky fan. Brad, I don't know what team you root for. You can tell me in the Zone TV chat. But history makes a rivalry. Not any particular run of we were better than them for 5 or 7 or 8 years, or we beat them 2 out of 3. To me, that's all history. Am I missing something here?
No, and listen, I am in the camp of whatever format works where you can keep the most of those rivalries intact. Because let's take, for instance, we know Alabama's number one rivalry is Auburn and the Iron Bowl.
Yep.
And how many times has Auburn had an okay team or less and given them everything they wanted and beat them time from time, occasion.
Should have beat them last year. That was an incredible game.
Think about the kick 6 years ago.
Gosh.
And I mean,
My man Gus Malzahn.
I don't miss those Iron Bowls because you never know what in the world's going to happen, whether you got a dog in the hunt or not. And so I'm all for keeping the most rivalries that mean, because listen, and I'm not trying to be the old man raising his fist at the sky in the front yard, get off my lawn. But I mean, there's a lot of history with some of this stuff, and the fact that some of it could go away, I don't know that I like that SEC. I like the SEC that's keeps a lot of those things intact.
I understand anybody who would want to stand up and say, I don't want to play an administrator or saying, hey, man, we're having a hard time getting our 6 wins, 7 wins, whatever. I don't want to play 9 SEC games. I could understand maybe an administrator because that's an administrative decision. Everybody sits down and they go, okay, we're going to go to Florida. What are we going to say about this? That's not just the AD goes down there and goes willy-nilly and says, I only want to play 8 games or we're going to play 9. All that gets discussed ahead of time. That's a company policy that you walk into the breezeway room down there at the Sandestin Resort. You walk into that room with a consensus of this is what we want to do. Now, the 10-game SEC during COVID was fantastic to watch.
Oh, no doubt.
Those 10 games, you're lying if you didn't say that you like that. I don't care what league you root for. But that's a consensus that you walk in the room and say that. But the idea of just burying some of these rivalries, the idea that everything goes out the window except for one, and if you're Tennessee, it would be Vandy, and that's been more competitive over recent years, but that's who you'd get. It'd be you and Vandy because you're in the same state, and like the Egg Bowl, they want each other. Let us have at it. The Iron Bowl, we want each other. Let us have at it. Red River rivalry, Texas and Oklahoma when they join. But there's a whole bunch of secondary games that you'd see then, every other year? I mean, however often that you could have it because you rotated.
That's right.
Every other year, I guess, you'd either have them at home or on the road.
Yep. I think the interesting thing out of Blake's segment with us is the whole talk about a playoff. I mean, because you'll have 16 teams, so the numbers are right in terms of a football playoff in just the SEC. Again, growing pains. These are all interesting questions, but there's a delicate balance there because you could say, well, it'd be great if we did this, but it's like there's a laundry list of things you've got to consider to make it happen.
Somebody asked me once, what's it like to work in college athletics? And I said, I'll tell you. Said it's almost like being a politician because every decision you make makes some people really happy and makes some people so mad they can't see straight. I said, let's say you need to fix something with parking. You need an access to a tailgate area or something. And so to make 1,000 people happy, to give them maybe easier access to a specific part of your property or whatever, you have to tell 25 people you've lost your parking space. You might as well tell those people, I hate you.
Yes.
Your kids are ugly.
Yes.
I would never go to your church.
That's right.
You have insulted those people in ways that you can't imagine. But everything you do, there's a push and a pull. And it's just like this stuff, okay? Are we going to bury decades of transition in the name of a scheduling model? I mean, you're going to make...
There's not going to be unanimous utopian things that are going to happen. Somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get mad. And there may be a majority that likes whatever. There's still going to be a faction that won't.
Oh, gosh.
It's just that. Just the way it works.
And this is sports, but oh, my gosh, is this life for people?
Oh, there's no doubt.
That's why we're on the radio talking about it
Listen,
right now.
when I sold cars for 15 years, there's 5% of the populace you cannot please selling a car no matter what you do.
It's more than that. I think you're being kind at 5%.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's a percentage.
You cannot make them happy.
Leland Stadium comes on the night and said, tonight it's going to rain gold bricks.
Mm-hmm.
Load up because you're about to be rich. There's a small group of folks that's like, it ruined my car.
I wanted platinum bricks.
Yeah. This destroyed my car. It just rained gold bricks. Come on, man.
All right, we're going to pack up our gold bricks for hour number 2. We got open phone lines. We can go in any direction. There's a lot of Titans OTA stuff. Some of you guys are on the line, want to talk about SEC scheduling. We got a whole hour that's just for us and just for you. We'll even hear from some Titans coaches as well. We've got some great audio. We'll get into some things, including Rhett Bryan's front four that he loves. We'll hear about them from their DC coming up. All right, it's go time. NBA Finals literally here. And this is your chance to score big on FanDuel Sportsbook. Throughout the NBA Finals, FanDuel is going to give new customers $200 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You can bet the money line, points, spreads, player props, so much more. Plus, you can combine your bets for an even bigger payday with a same-game parlay. All right. It's go time tonight. Golden State, like them to win. Like Klay Thompson to have a big night, maybe hit a bunch of threes. I think Marcus Smart's going to score the first bucket, though, just to rile up those Warrior fans. Why don't you just take a shot at a parlay of your own? Sign up with the promo code Mickey. If you haven't tried FanDuel, it's the perfect time to give it a shot because the only thing sweeter than watching the finals is cashing in on all the action. Again, join today with the promo code Mickey. Turn a $5 bet into $200 in free bets, win or lose. Make every game feel like Game 7. Only with FanDuel Sportsbook, official partner of the NBA. That's FanDuel. You do have to be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. First online real money wager. Only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable free bets that expire 14 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call Tennessee Redline at 1-800-889-9789.
Good afternoon. I am Will Bowling. Two longtime NFL veterans have announced their retirement this afternoon, starting with former Titan and longtime NFL quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick. The 39-year-old suffered a season-ending hip injury in week 1 of last season against the Los Angeles Chargers. He started for 9 different teams, which is an NFL record among quarterbacks. And according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, Fitzpatrick is in deep negotiations with Amazon to become a studio analyst for them this season. And according to Adam Schefter just a couple of minutes ago, Frank Gore, the number 3 all-time leading rusher in NFL history, is signing a one-day contract with the San Francisco 49ers and retiring this afternoon as well. Tonight on the hardwood, it's game 1 of the NBA Finals. Celtics and the Warriors. Golden State is a 3.5-point favorite tonight, but Boston is the only team in the Steve Kerr era with a winning record against Golden State. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Happy Thursday to you. Rhett Bryan is in the studio hanging out today for the Hitman, Blaine Bishop. We're going to talk some Titans in this hour. We have no guests, so you can be our guest. Be our guest. Be our guest.
Put our service to the test.
Thank you, sir. Was that who said that? Cogsworth or like the Skillet or someone?
It was
Lumiere.
The Lumiere, the candle.
The candelabra, right?
From Be Our Guest. Be Our Guest.
Put our service to the test.
Try the gray stuff. It's delicious.
Bird in there just dropping his Disney knowledge. Look at him go. Magical stuff. So we ended the first hour of the show. Blake Topmeyer joined us. The SEC, well, I guess by tomorrow they will have voted on what the future scheduling model will be. There were people who were saying the 9-3 model would just be rubber stamped. But no, there was a last-second cavalry to try to keep it at 8 games. And I understand that from a certain point of view. Like, I don't want to play another SEC game. I want to schedule Cupcake U, get them in here. So we threw out the question. A lot of people in Zone TV are chatting about it, about what is a rivalry and who is a rival. Prometheus, I guess, is a Tennessee fan. Alabama is number 1 for me. Florida is number 2. This is a Tennessee fan weighing in. Brandon says, we beat Bama 3 times while I was in college. Well, then Nick Saban happened. Ha, ha, ha. Who wins the rivalry comes and goes. It's more the history to me that makes it. There was a guy, Brad, in the Zone TV chat who said Tennessee and Alabama aren't rivals and, made some comments about it. And Bill weighed in and said, no, that's not the way it works. The Bears and Packers rivalry is rarely a good game, he says.
But they've been playing each other for 100 years.
100 years. Yeah. Twice a year.
It's the oldest rivalry in football, in professional football.
So the Bears have stunk, and the Packers have had an unbelievable run of 2 straight quarterbacks.
But those 2 teams and their fan bases, every year, twice a year, lock horns, man. It's something that happens.
There is a deep-seated hatred that goes from generation to generation.
Yes.
Think about that in 100 years in a rivalry like that.
That's right.
College football's been around 100 years too.
Yes, indeed.
So you have some deep-seated rivalries. And I've just been – I try to walk the line of realist in the modern world and, my gosh, I love tradition. And college sports have – Major League Baseball, every time the wind blows, they're willing to change something. There are people who hate interleague play. I don't hate that. I think it's great. Doing away with the DH in the National League. They'll just say, okay, we've held on to our tradition forever, but if it means you'll watch on TV, what would you like for us to get rid of this week? We'll do that for you. What do you not like? We'll scrap it for you. But colleges have done away with rivalries because of conference splits and expansion and the way certain teams and programs have chased money and left a conference to go to another. And then there's acrimony. And so you don't go back to your rival in that conference and go, look, man, here's why we had to go, but let's us keep playing. A lot of them are just like, nope, the hatchet never gets buried, and they just stay apart from each other.
Yeah. Cleave and leave.
That's it. Bye. Yep. Sorry, more money. And I'm not often the person who the fans are the ones who get hurt. But in stuff like that, the fans are the ones who get hurt.
They absolutely are.
I mean, if you're some guy and you're going to, or young lady, and you're going to go to college and play for them, who they used to play in the past is of no consequence to you. You're going to go and play whomever they put on the schedule for you now.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fans who sit in the seats with their parents, with their grandparents, with their great-grandparents. It's the rivalries that they grew up loving that are torn apart. To me, that's the most interesting thing about college athletics, and the chasing of a buck is how rivalries have just been flushed down the toilet. And this is the SEC staying at 8 games and only – this isn't necessarily them chasing a buck. It's them – they have all the bucks.
Yes, they do.
An added SEC game would probably add money to their bottom line. So in this case, it's – I don't know. It's just trying to freshen things up, trying to freshen up their way of thinking, trying to modernize their
That's
schedule.
right.
That way, if you go to somewhere and you play 4 years, you'd play everybody.
Evolve with the game of football, but there's some things important you can leave behind if you evolve too much and too many things.
Got a couple of phone calls on this. Let's get Tony in first on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Tony, what's going on with you, man? What's going on? What do you say about this stuff?
Well, first, you guys can hear me okay, correct?
We
Yep.
can.
In the country, so I want to make sure. Excellent. Thanks for having me. This is a very interesting topic for me with the NIL. There's so many different angles that go into it. First point that I want to make about the NIL specifically is the money value portion of it. I think that it's, very beneficial, and this whole thing between Jimbo and Nick Saban is just going to light a fire up for a better rivalry. Speaking on the rivalries, could you imagine if Tennessee didn't get Georgia, Florida, Alabama every year? The third Saturday in October, believe it or not, a lot of Tennessee fans are the big Florida-Tennessee rivalry. Tony J is a big Alabama-Tennessee rivalry. I look forward every single year to the third Saturday in October. So every Tennessee friend that I have that's an Alabama fan can just maybe get, maybe we'll get them one day. And I just look forward to that every year. And then if you did that, you're even talking about taking out in-state rivalries. Don't forget, Tennessee plays Vanderbilt in-state. Georgia and Georgia Tech are out-of-conference in-state rivals, as well as Florida and Florida State being out-of-conference in-state rivals. Doesn't mean that it can't happen. These rivalries are always good. They've always stayed in and been taught to each other. I think we need to stay 3, and it does need to go 9 games. I wish I had more time. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, sir, for weighing in. Gator Mike is on the line. You don't have to wonder who he wrote for. It's in his name. What's up, Gator?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Good to hear you, Rhett.
Thank you, Mike.
Hey, Mickey, you're right. It's like, you know what? Even though Florida's won, say, 15 out of 16, 15 out of 17, there's no bigger atmosphere in Knoxville or Gainesville than the week of that game, right? I mean, you've been around them, living here, all that stuff. It's the same thing. It's still a rivalry, even for the fans, even if it's not super competitive on the field, although the last couple of times it's been really close. But also, too, I like the 9-game thing because Scott Strickland said yesterday, that really evens the playing field for Florida and Georgia because, Mickey, as you know, being an administrator, they play that neutral game in Jacksonville every year. That would give them an extra home game, which, of course, like you said, helps their coffers and stuff. So, Scott Strickland was like, that would definitely help us out on that point. But I just think it's just weird to me. Like, I'm an SEC elitist, right? I just think it's the best conference with the best players and, best rivalries and all that stuff. I mean, I love college football all around. But, I really feel, Mickey, like you're saying, it's going to be weird, Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC. So, if I'm a fan in the Big 12 now, I'm really hating life, right? Because, it's bad enough when West Virginia joined and, Rutgers going to the Big 10 and all these different things. It's just so weird, just because it's like you said, it's all about money. And it's just, it's sad from what we grew up with seeing, even just the bowl games, even the New Year's Day bowl games aren't the same that I remember. I was like, you'd love that day. It seemed like you had 30 bowl games that day. So, anyways, I'll just hang up and listen, but I just want to get my point on that.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Well, and credit to Tony, who went through some out-of-conference in-state rivalries that have somehow stayed intact.
That's right.
Where it's like, no, Clemson, South Carolina, we're just going to keep playing each other.
Right.
Oh, no, Georgia Tech, we're just going to keep playing each other.
Virginia Tech. Yeah.
We're just going to keep playing each other.
As we were talking to Blake Topmeyer earlier, that's what I was thinking about is all of the out-of-conference versus out of conference things that were in-state rivalries that still happen. You're right. Tony was right.
Let's get into some Titans stuff when we come back. Spent a long time in the first segment of the day talking about the Titans defense. Rhett Bryan is high on this group and has been. Was high on them last year, is even higher on them this year. Pointed out, 10 of 11 returning starters on a unit that only seemed to get better as the year went on. He talked about the front four and how they give the Titans the ability rush 4, cover with 7. That is the magic sauce right there. That front four was talked about by its defensive coordinator yesterday. We'll hear from Shane Bowen next. What did he have to say? Blaine and Mickey.
Sometimes the past really does predict the future. There's a guy who started his business while living in a beat-up single-wide trailer for 7 years in order to save money for expansion, starting with vehicle repair in a single-car garage for his first 90 days in downtown Franklin, and then moving to his barn in front of his trailer, and then moving to Southeast Parkway on the south side of Franklin, and then moving to Columbia Avenue in downtown Franklin, and finally to a full facility location on Royal Oaks, close to the interstate in Franklin, and now also in Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, and Belle Meade. The guy's name? Aaron Stokes, owner of Eurofix, fixing everything European that drives and offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without dealer pricing. There's a lot more to the past since 1999, but for the future, Eurofix can help keep you off the tow truck and out of the repair shop. So if you want the best to work on your European vehicle, just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, Monday through Friday, or you can just visit them online at myeurofix.com. That's myeurofix.com. But always tell them Blaine said you.
Blaine and Mickey 1045 The Zone. Rhett Bryan hanging out for the Headman today. Appreciate you stepping in, man.
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. Very glad to do it. Always good to do radio with you, sir. Ann and Nancy Wilson of Heart, by the way. Did you know they're not like talking?
I know.
They're doing different things.
I know.
I don't know what. I mean, they're together for 50 years. What happened there? That's really kind of strange. I don't know any backstories, but didn't mean to bird track us there, but it's just odd.
You just threw a dead barracuda in there for Mickey to deal with. How do you feel about that, Mick?
This is like throwing a tennis ball, though, or a squirrel, and I'm allowed.
Squirrel!
You've just thrown something that I have to chase. So they are apart now, as you pointed out.
Yeah. Touring separately.
And for people who don't know, they're sisters, Ann and Nancy Wilson, actual sisters.
Yep.
It broke all these gender barriers in rock and roll. Were treated terribly by all their own accounts when they first started.
Yes.
Not treated very well. Rock and Roll Hall of Famers?
I believe that's right. They're from Seattle, right?
Yes.
So they were Seattle before grunge was a thing.
And really, you can see they kind of adopted some of those grunge bands because at different times where Heart might be getting celebrated, some of those guys might come play with them, especially the Jerry Cantrell and the guys from Alice in Chains.
Right.
So they have a great relationship with some of those bands who came after them. But, yeah, them not being able to get it together at this point. One day I was talking to Coach Mack, and I was like, hey, tell me what this is. Tell me what I'm supposed to be looking for. So Coach Mack is like, this guy's supposed to be on his left foot, and he's on his right foot, and and he just did a fantastic job, like Coach Mack explains things.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'll tell you what, and I've told Blaine the same thing. Trod 999 says it had to do with the backing band. I think Nancy wanted some new guys, and Ann wanted to keep whoever they had.
Oh, wow.
There we
go.
There's one theory from Trod. Thank you, Trod.
And 999. Thank you.
And I said, I'll tell you what, one of these days you and me can go to a music show and I'll tell you everything you want to know that's happening.
Yeah.
Because I turned pro in that. Like that's what I have almost enough talent to sort of maybe I made high A is the level I played in, but I tried. And so Blaine and me were talking the other day and I said, tell me everything you saw at practice. And some stuff we could say and some stuff we can't because it's things we can't talk about that we saw. But he was explaining a couple things to me. I was like, I would have never even thought to look at that. And he goes, well, it's just practice. They don't have pads on. But I just know, like, that guy messed up on that play.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and Blaine said, I never played for any of these guys, but that guy messed up. He shouldn't have been in that spot. And I said, I could take you to a band's rehearsal, and I could tell you who's the leader of the band, who's fighting with each other. I could tell you what songs they like and which ones they hate. I could do all that stuff because it's the same thing. And I said, to Blaine, like, this is fantastic stuff because you're seeing this through the most nuanced eyes. Like, you even know, you've done these OTAs. You know everything about what's going on. I said, so I would have that same thing. And it takes me to this comment because the Hart sisters are literal sisters who can't get along well enough to go tour and make all the money they want to make.
Mailbox money.
Anybody who ever wonders, like, I wonder why my favorite band broke up, it's because they hate each other. That's it. It's because most of the time, two people in the band hate each other. A lot of times it's the guitar player and the lead singer. It's because they hate each other.
And you spent more time with them in recording studios, appearances, touring, the whole deal than you do with your own family. And if you don't get along with your friends or your bandmates really well, it goes sideways.
So all your favorite bands, somebody hates somebody, or they all just hate each other. That's why, because
you're just burned out.
You don't make money selling physical records like you used to. You make money touring now. You go out on tour, and you make a lot of money because you can charge whatever you want.
The Rolling Stones have made a Exhibit A of that for 20 years.
And like Bill Wyman, I'm not doing this anymore. Have at it, boys. Bill Wyman hasn't been in a band since, what, the early 90s?
Right.
Bass player, if you don't know. But the other guys are like, we'll tolerate each other no matter what. We'll tolerate each other.
It's easy money.
So Mick and Keith and Ronnie and Charlie till, he went to rock and roll heaven, those guys were fine sticking with each other.
Yep.
But all your favorite bands that you wonder, gosh, why don't they ever come in? Because they hate each other. That's why. They hate each other.
But the Titans defense, that band is back together. 10 of 11 starters returning in 2022.
They got their big four, just like the Stones had Mick and Keith, and Charlie and Ronnie.
Yep.
And it is their front four. What did their DC say about these guys? I don't think he said they hate each other. He said something else.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line. I think you gotta build on where you were last year, just in terms of confidence and their ability to understand and affect the quarterback working together. I've always said it's a group thing. It's not about one-on-ones. It's a group effort up there in terms of affecting the quarterback. But with everything, you got to start from ground zero. Like all these guys, they leave us whenever the season's over. We don't get them back till mid-April, and who knows what they're doing, right? So, I mean, you always have to start from ground zero with everything we do. But I hope these guys have some comfort level with what we did, have some confidence from what they were able to achieve, and they come back with that as we get going.
That was Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator. This will be his second year to be the everybody knows he's the defensive coordinator, and he will go to each room, as he's talked about a lot. Like, well, now I can go to every room and I can talk to everybody. His foundation and his base is phenomenal for this crew, and he keeps saying ground zero, talking about those front four guys. I said this over and over, and somebody out there who, if you archive audio, to me, the best offseason acquisition, I thought by far was going to be Danico Autry. And he had more sacks than Big Jeff did.
Yep.
And gave enough, if you're an offensive line, and here they are, you can't ignore one. Big Jeff played so great next to Danico Autry. To me, even if Danico Autry slips a little bit because he's in his 30s now, I think Big Jeff will have the ability to pull that slack. It's the same for Harold Landry. There were some people who you have to pay Harold Landry, and others, and some of the football metric sites, they're not ever crazy about Harold Landry. But my two metrics are my eyes. The thing that's amazing to me about Landry, and let's say maybe Landry has 8 sacks this year, Bud Dupree needs to be able to pull the slack there to make up for that.
Yep.
The interesting thing to me about, you talked about Big Jeff earlier and just what a big dominant force he is. How many times the play 7 yards down the field and Big Jeff would go catch like a running back or a tight end or even a quarterback?
Yes.
If things are starting to get away, he would pursue. And the same with Harold Landry, where he's not the biggest guy. I've never heard like a pass rush teacher, somebody come out and go, Harold Landry has the largest arsenal of pass. No, I never really heard that about him.
But his pursuit is relentless.
He is absolutely relentless.
Yeah.
And even when the results aren't there, if he has 7.5, 8 sacks, the thing about Harold Landry is a lot of his sacks or his tackles for loss, there were so many times I'd be making notes for the postgame show last year, and I would be looking back through my game notes, and Harold Landry would have gone to the complete other side of the field and like pushed the quarterback out of bounds to get a sack. Or the running back would have a 1-yard gain, but it would be on the complete opposite side of the field from Harold Landry, where he went through the backfield and then got that guy from behind. The high motor that he has and the motor that Big Jeff has, and really Danico Autry, he has to have high motor to be as active as he is for the whole game. Bud Dupree on 2 good legs, as we talked about a little bit in the first hour of the program, even if you have a little drop production-wise, numbers-wise from Landry, a little bit of age-related production drop from Danico, I think you can get so much more from Big Jeff and so much more from Bud Dupree.
And we haven't even talked about the Naquan Jones of the world, Tier Tart, Laurel Murchison. I mean, there's other pieces to this thing. But, yeah, I mean, they're as loaded on that side of the ball as I can remember. Now, when you go draft on that side of the ball and when you bring in the right free agents on the side of the ball, all of a sudden you look up and there's what you've got if things are working right. And things are working and ginning in the right direction for that group.
Other thing, too, in the current league, it's almost a cliche to say it, but it's one of those cliches that's really true. You can't have enough corners. When they took McCreary in the second round, I think some people were like, gosh. I mean, I had a buddy who called me and said, why didn't they take another receiver right there? Why didn't they take an offensive lineman right there, the best one of it? I don't know. But McCreary has a real chance to be on the field a whole lot for this team.
Yes.
And I know we haven't seen him play one game against another team or with pads on. We haven't seen any of that. people always, I try to remind myself, don't get carried away. But I watched him play in the SEC and take on their best receiver each week. You can go back and watch his tape. It's all out there, highlight videos. But one of the questions is like, well, how'd they do against Bama? We played Bama every year. He did fine.
Yes.
How do you do against Traylon Burks? He played against Traylon Burks. I mean, how do you do against all those guys from LSU? He played all those people.
Yes.
I mean, he faced the best there was. All those guys are in the NFL now.
And held his own accordingly.
Yeah. And
if you're going to get ready for what he's about to do, that's the place where you do it, in that conference. You're going to see those guys on Sundays now. A lot of the people he faced.
And I think he's going to be one of the – I remember they put Christian Fulton in the slot briefly early in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing an interview with him, and he said, I never done this before. You know, at this level, there's so much going on. I don't know if he said I never done this before because he'd been versatile at LSU at times and done different things. But he said just the gist of the interview was there's a lot I need to learn to play in here. It's different than playing outside, way different. And some fans are just like, well, it's all cornerback. It's not the same at all. It's a completely different position to go play that nickel spot for what you're asked to do and how you have to read the play and how you have to read what's going on, especially with what the linemen are doing and everything else. I mean, I know we have to speak in generalities. I'm not so sure that McCreary isn't a guy who could play inside or out. How about that? I feel like that's something I could say.
Yeah. And you wouldn't get a whole lot of argument from me about that. No, I think there's something to that. Now, here's the other part about the whole thing with the way this defense has been built. Obviously, it's strange to think that Kevin Byard's in year 7. You know, and of course, he talked to us yesterday about, you know, changing up diet permanently and eating and the exercise and maybe getting a little lighter. I've heard Blaine talking about that with you yesterday. Mm-hmm. And how, you know, this is where the wily veteran stuff comes out. If I'm going to continue to play this, I'm going to have to treat the temple a little better than what I've been treating the temple, right? But I'm thinking about all the guys that have had to play so much, so young. We haven't even talked about Elijah Molden.
Yeah.
What a play he had there in Indianapolis on Halloween Day that day.
Yep.
To help, you know, seal up a game.
He was called a Jedi in the slot. Yeah. By Lewis Riddick coming out in the draft.
And then Christian Fulton, as much as he's played in his first, he's going into year 3. And then, again, Jeff is in the prime of his career now. So, yeah, I think things, you know, if the injury bug, knock on wood, is a little less than what it was last year, might be some special things we're talking about.
Let's talk about some of these things with cousin Joey from Cross Plains, who joins us now on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. What's going on, Joey? How are you doing?
I'm good, Sam. How are y'all?
Doing great.
You know, like most bands, you know, I don't hate y'all. I love y'all. Y'all are all my eyes, you know, unfortunately in my case. And, you know, I trust y'all with, you know, a lot of stuff to help me keep in touch with my beloved Titans. But, you know, y'all been talking defense. I want to, you know, touch on the offense a little bit or ask about them mainly because, you know, like I said, y'all are my eyes and y'all are at practice and y'all see a lot more than, you know, we do as a public. But, you know, I just wanted to see how, you know, get y'all's take on, you know, Kyle Phillips, you know, with him, you know, him coming in, Chika Okonkwo, Bobby Trees, how he's coming along with his, with the, you know, the ACL, if he's trusting it more every day. And, you know, just about the my main concern is, you know, the offensive line. You know, we'll have 2 new starters there, and kind of what are y'all seeing? And just like y'all say, just in generalities, because I know y'all can't spill all the beans, but just in general, you know, how's everything shaping up for the offense with, you know, those guys?
Joey, thank you for the call, man. Always happy to have you listen and happy to help you see what you want to see, man.
Kyle Phillips from UCLA is the first guy you ask about, and that's a guy that I think will be asked to do quite a bit of things because of his special teams play, because we know he can be a return guy. And I think he'll be all right as a slot guy in this thing. You know, his size is always a concern because, you know, those little speedy dudes, you worry about contact there. But, you know, and he's a guy that's finding his bearings in this.
Mm-hmm.
I like what I see so far, even though we're early in this. Chigakonkwo, he's going to contribute in this, and he, again, learning curves for all these fellas. But and Bobby Trees, I think there is a little difference in what I saw in OTAs from the week before to this week in terms of learning to trust, the mental part about, okay, I can work on this knee. I can see that, and I think you'll see more as you get into mini camp in a couple of weeks. And then when training camp comes, I think you'll see another move forward in the right direction. The O-line, and you're right, we can't report, exact things in terms of lineup, and where guys are lining up for competitive advantage. But it wouldn't matter really if we did, because they changed that up so much because they cross-train these dudes to play different stuff and different sides and, guards and centers and this and that and the other. A lot of it is so early to tell in this. I can see where they're going, but, right now is installation of all three phases and getting the first-year guys that are new here lined up in the right place, and obviously the rookies lined up in the right place. But, defense had a better day than the offense yesterday, and we know that.
Well, there was one 7-on-7 where they had trouble completing a pass.
PBU.
There were like 5 or 6
PBU.
in the period.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, that's the ebbs and flows of these things. That when training camp starts, I'd fully anticipate the defense will have days consecutive they'll have a better showing than the offense. It's the way it happens. It's the way it is. But, I hope I gave you enough of something there, Joey. But I think I can see some things. I can see what they're trying to do. I can see where they're going, and what little glimpses I get. I like what I see so far.
The offense feels a lot like this year the defense did last year. They're willing to put a whole bunch of new faces in place to see if they can get the results they want.
Yeah.
It worked on defense.
That's right.
Yeah. Cuzzo Gorilla on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. What's going on, Cuzzo G? What you got?
Gentlemen, how y'all doing on this beautiful day in Nashville, Tennessee?
Fine and dandy. And
fantabulous.
Man, I'm blessed. Hard at work. But my statement, my point was, what about Racey McMath, y'all? He has all the intangibles. He has the speed. What is he looking like right now?
Well, Cuzzo Gorilla, I'll tell you this. I think you're going to continue to see a lot of Racey McMath in special teams types of things just because of his speed and size. And look, your hope for him is that he continues down a path like Nick Westbrook-Akina is right now. I think that's what you're wanting out of that. And if he shows more than that and does more than that, then great.
Yeah, I'm serious. If I had my way with him, I would have him on the judge machine. I'd have him in the study room because I think that's our sleeper receiver, guys. And I can't compare him to Westbrook-Akina. You can find Westbrook-Akina on any team in the NFL. I mean, I think I'm hoping. The boys from New Orleans, the Southern boy, I'm rooting for that guy, man. They need to develop him up.
Well, Racey McMath, like you said, plug him in on special teams. He did a lot of special teams at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the talk coming in. A bunch of guys played ahead of him, all those first round, all those fantastic receivers. So because of the depth at LSU, he had trouble getting snaps, but he took every advantage of his opportunities on special teams.
And that's the way he latches onto this roster. That's the way this is.
Oh, if you're the number 6, number 7 receiver, it's because you play special teams.
Yeah, you've got to.
And that's an advantage he might have over some of the other guys is how good he can be at that. But because Gorilla and anybody who's listening, you're going to see a bunch of that dude in the preseason. He's going to get every chance.
Mickey, we teased it. We still got to do it in this last segment. We got to talk about famous people from Tennessee. We had no idea they were born in Tennessee.
Okay, here we go. Last segment. Bill in Spring Hill, I think, let's talk about NASCAR. Bill, we can try to squeeze in your call on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Rhett rabbit hole down all these people who are from Tennessee that he had no idea. So here's the side question. You can hit us in the Zone TV chat. You can even call at Blaine and Mickey on Twitter. Who's the most famous person from your hometown in Tennessee? Or even if you're South Central Kentucky, Northern Alabama, whatever it is, Like, is there a super famous person from your hometown? Because I think you start looking, it's pretty shocking how much of there is of that around here. We'll be right back. Blaine and Mickey. Blaine and Mickey taking a dive into a question here. God.
Holy diver.
Man, the late, great
Ronnie James Dio.
Ronnie Pavadova.
Wow.
I have a picture of him that my friend Rick
Good
Shell
pull.
gave me. He signed it. It said, "To Mickey, you rock. Magic." He sent me Magic, Ronnie James Dio. He was sitting like in this medieval-looking office, and there was a Mr. Coffee next to him.
How about that?
It took away some of the magic, but it's still magic. I think he's top 5 singer all time, Ronnie James Dio.
That dude
He's in
was
my top 5.
amazing, man.
Wow. I had no idea you would be that big of a fan.
Ronnie James Dio is top 5 all time for me. He was like 5'2".
Holy Divers, 83? That sound right?
That's 83 or 84.
Yeah.
Viv Campbell, who's with Def Leppard now, was the guitar player on all that. That's fantastic stuff. So Rhett comes up, and people are just filling the Zone TV chat with this about all the famous people from their hometown in Tennessee.
All right, let me give you the one that blew me away, and it's not my hometown, but Hall of Fame Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Lynn Swann was born in Alcoa in East Tennessee. I was yesterday years old when I found that out.
And this is like Mr. West Coast, USC,
Right.
then Mr. Steel Curtain State. By the way, he has 336 catches, I believe, and is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
That's correct. Yeah. And then to prepare for tonight's first game of the NBA Finals, Big O Oscar Robertson, for those who don't know, a lot of people do, he was born in Charlotte, Tennessee, in Dixon County. That's weird. You're talking about a guy that's on the 50th anniversary team, probably on the 75th anniversary team of the NBA as well.
Big O's top 10 all time.
Yeah.
I mean, he
was born in Charlotte, Tennessee, just over to our west in Dixon County. Big O.
Blaine and me were talking about how great J.J. Redick is on TV. He was born in Cookeville, Tennessee.
And when you brought that up, I said, Florida head coach Billy Napier, born in Cookeville, Tennessee. It's nuts.
Chief Luffman wants to weigh in on this. Famous people. Chief is in Mount Juliet. It's the most famous person from Mount Juliet.
Actually, Mickey, I got 2 of them. One of them is obviously Charlie Daniels,
Boy.
who was as authentic as any person I've ever met. And then the other is 2-time shuttle commander Barry Wilmore.
Whoa. 2-time shuttle commander.
I had the privilege of playing football, high school football, with both of those gentlemen.
Oh, my gosh. Well, the guy who started Cracker Barrel, we've all eaten a lot of his food. Isn't he from Mount Juliet?
Yeah. Well, he's more from Lebanon, but yeah.
We don't quite
Come on,
claim
man.
him.
Get it right, Vicky. Thank you, Chief Luffman. A lot of people weighing in here. Prometheus says DJ Qualls, the actor who had a real nice run in the 90s, sports legend Aileen Banks. He's just listing people. I don't know what town he's from.
Gotcha.
Roger Hardison, most famous person from Shelbyville, Tennessee, Big Smo, and actress Sandra Locke, which you and I were talking about this
From
before the show.
Shelbyville.
She was in
Or
only
Shebville.
Shebville. He says, Prometheus, it's Shebville.
Yep.
And so Prentice Cooper, governor of Tennessee, Jim Cooper, Sandra Locke. We were discussing this, and you started listening to people from Memphis.
Oh, it's amazing. And I'm talking about not you obviously think music, but it's not just music. It's everything. Actors. I mean Morgan Freeman. But yeah, like Lark Voorhees, the girl that played Lisa Turtle on Saved by the Bell, from Nashville, born in Nashville. Bill Belichick, born in Nashville.
Yeah, and I'm like, because I knew it had to be connected to Steve. He was on the staff at Vanderbilt.
That's right.
And then was at the Naval Academy after that, because there's all the
That is
ties
correct.
of Bill Belichick to the Naval Academy.
Sybil Shepherd, the actress, she's from Memphis.
Oh yeah, no, she is.
Thomas Hitman Hearns is from Memphis, boxing legend. Cynthia Rhodes, that was in Dirty Dancing and Staying Alive. She was a dancer at Opryland. She's from Nashville. Married to Richard Marx.
She was flat out. She was in Animotion, I think, even for a minute.
She was.
The band. Yes,
She was the girl. She was Rosanna in the Toto video. Rosanna. She was the girl.
She had a pretty good run.
Dang right.
Ted in Clarksville. There's all kinds of famous people from Clarksville. Ted, what do you got to say?
Well, I've got 3, if I can name them all.
Go for it.
Get
Wilma Rudolph.
Yep.
And the guy that played Sergeant Carter.
Frank
on
Sutton.
Tile.
Frank Sutton,
Yes.
yes.
And a guy from my alma mater here, Harry Galbraith. He played in the NFL with Green Bay and Miami. back in the 80s.
Hey, I
Played at
asked,
the University of Tennessee.
I asked Doug
Yes.
Matthews once, maybe it was who's the best offensive lineman you ever coached, and he said it was Harry Galbraith, the late Harry Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you for the call. He had so many fantastic things to say about him. He played 10 years in the NFL. I do believe he's passed away now.
Yes.
But boy, what a fantastic Vol and what a fantastic longtime pro player too, Harry Galbraith.
But I mean, it's amazing the people that were born in Tennessee. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that Tina Turner, one of my all-time favorites, West Tennessee native. Rock and Roll
Nutbush.
Hall of Fame. That's right.
Nutbush, Tennessee.
That's exactly right.
Which she sang about being from Nutbush.
Yes, she did.
So who is it from your hometown?
The most famous, I mean, now, Murfreesboro has enough schools and athletics there now that there's players that play in, David Price plays in Major League Baseball, a very good pitcher. There's guys that have been drafted in the NFL. For a long time, it was a lady named that my dad went to high school with named Ray Seddon, who was she was in the NASA program. She was on space shuttle missions.
Wow.
Yeah.
My
So-
hometown, nobody. We had this discussion. Like every hometown has one guy that was an astronaut or.
So if we look up your town, you should be on Wikipedia, and you're not on there. That's what you're telling me.
Host of Titans pre and post game on the zone. Nobody. We have no astronauts, no presidents, we have no major leaguers,
Isn't that
nothing.
wild?
Not one person. Nobody. We got to amp up our.
Yet tiny
everything.
Warren, Arkansas, is
I
the
told you
home
this.
of Traylon Burks and three other NFL players?
Four NFL players over the span of the last. You got to go back about 10 years
Yeah.
to get them all.
But Warren, Arkansas has 400 people in it?
No,
Like that?
I think we looked. It was 4,000.
Okay, 4,000. Sorry.
But still, 4,000
I'm a digit
people
off.
in the middle of nowhere in Arkansas has had 4 Razorbacks turned NFL players, the latest being Traylon Burks.
That's crazy. But the whole Lynn Swann from Alcoa, born in Alcoa, I'm like, my
blown your
head
mind.
exploded. I'm like, what in the world?
All right. Go be the most famous person from your hometown, whoever you are, and we'll talk about you one day. We got to go. 3HL's coming up next. Rhett Bryan, thank you, sir.
And in the meantime,
In between time, peace!